Eastern has a great franchise. Eastern is one of the original grandfather airlines.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the times a single person's bad decision-making had devastating consequences for a business.
We're dealing with a lot of issues.
Number 30, Robert E. Line Jr., Joseph Schlitz Brewing Company. Imagine if New Coke was so reviled that it essentially tanked Coca-Cola. For much of the first half of the 20th century, this Milwaukee-based business was one of the biggest names in beer, often vying with Anheuser-Busch for the crown.
Move up to quality. Move up to Schlitz, the beer that made Milwaukee famous.
It even helped popularize the ubiquitous brown beer bottle. Things truly turned disastrous in 1967 when President and Chairman Robert E. Line Jr. introduced an efficiency initiative known as accelerated batch fermentation. Doing this involved using an additional beer stabilizer, which reacted with another stabilizer, creating mucus-like flakes and revolting customers.
Bad beer went out in the market, and it took Schlitz quite a while to recognize the fact.
Line passed away from complications of leukemia in 1976, and Schlitz's fortunes continued to slide. Since 1999, the Schlitz brand has continued under the Pabst Brewing Company, with a reconstructed version of the classic formula. Number 29, John Antioco, Blockbuster. For decades, Blockbuster was the name in home video entertainment.
There are over 9,000 ways to make tonight a Blockbuster night.
John Antioco took over as CEO in 1997, taking the video rental giant public just 2 years later. However, there was a looming threat known as Netflix, a mail-order subscription DVD service.
Go to Netflix.com, make a list of the movies you want to see, and in about one business day, you'll get 3 DVDs. Keep them as long as you want, without late fees.
Antioco, to his credit, responded by creating new services to compete with Netflix, which saw some success. But Netflix's $50 million offer for Blockbuster to acquire them in the year 2000 was swiftly rejected. Antioco allegedly even laughed the founders out of the room. Ultimately, the joke was on him, as Blockbuster went bankrupt in 2010, and Netflix became a true entertainment powerhouse.
They were too busy making money in their video stores to imagine a time when people would no longer want or need them.
Number 28, Stephen Elop, Nokia Corporation. Elop successfully headed Microsoft's business division in the late 2000s, so making him CEO of telecom giant Nokia in 2010 surely seemed like a slam dunk.
Nokia is hoping Elop can help the company regain some of the $60 billion in market value it's lost since Apple's iPhone became all the rage.
Instead, it was more like an airball. In 2011, an internal memo known as Burning Platform was leaked. While intended to be motivational, it read more as demoralizing. That same year, Elop announced Nokia would be phasing out its previous operating systems in favor of Microsoft's Windows Phone system. Sales went into free fall, and more than 40,000 Nokia employees were laid off.
The mobile giant said it will cut 170 jobs in logistics, production management, and production support.
Nokia's stock value plummeted 85% following Elop's hiring. He announced he would be stepping down in 2013. The same day it was announced Microsoft would purchase Nokia's Devices and Services division. This soon became Microsoft Mobile. Number 27, Jerry Yang, Yahoo. At its peak, the web portal was valued at $125 billion. But competition from the likes of Google put a serious dent in its popularity. So Microsoft's offer to purchase Yahoo for $44.6 billion in 2008 seems like a no-brainer. That's not how CEO Jerry Yang saw it. Negotiations went nowhere and Yahoo's value eroded further. On the same day that Yahoo announced the end of talks with Microsoft, an advertising partnership with Google was announced, which was curtailed after a few months. Yang stepped down that November.
The bottom line is that Yahoo has had misstep after misstep, mistake after mistake.
In 2016, it was announced that Yahoo would be sold to Verizon, in what Forbes called the saddest $5 billion deal in tech history. Number 26, Stockton Rush, OceanGate. In 2021, Rush's submersible company OceanGate began offering trips down to the wreckage of the Titanic via the Titan submersible. Concerns about the vessel's safety were expressed as early as 2018, but Rush seemed to give them no serious regard.
The submersible community had become so distressed by Stockton Rush's apparent disregard for safety standards that 36 industry experts wrote to OceanGate, warning catastrophe was looming unless changes were made.
In June 2023, Rush and 4 others were aboard Titan when contact with its mothership was lost. After 4 days, debris from the vessel was discovered 1,600 feet from the Titanic, with all 5 passengers declared dead, including Rush.
The whole volume of the submersible collapses in about 2 milliseconds. And it takes 25 milliseconds for the human brain to detect a threat.
Multiple investigations and a $50 million lawsuit soon followed, along with OceanGate suspending business operations.
Stockton Rush once said, if you're not breaking things, you're not innovative. Is there truth to that in your industry, or is that just reckless?
Completely reckless.
Number 25, Elon Musk, Twitter. For years, Musk had cultivated an image of himself as a business genius, leading innovative corporations like Tesla and SpaceX and becoming the richest person in the world.
What is it about you that seems to invite skepticism?
Well, I think it's because we're doing these things that seem unlikely to succeed.
However, his $44 billion 2022 purchase of social media platform Twitter was a series of terrible decisions. He changed the name to simply X, undoing years of familiar branding. Most consequentially, hate speech and disinformation increased substantially due to reduced moderation.
Just over time, these things build up and the site will become more abusive, more extreme, and less reliable over time.
Unsurprisingly, both advertisers and users left in droves. Thousands of employees were laid off as well. Just 2 years after the acquisition, it was estimated that the company's value had been slashed nearly 80%. While X, formerly Twitter, has by no means gone away, its reputation and that of its CEO has diminished severely. Number 24, Rupert Murdoch, MySpace. When Australian mogul Rupert Murdoch's News Corp purchased MySpace in 2005 for $580 million, it was the most popular site on the globe, emphasis on was.
We have well over 100 million users a month.
A $900 million 3-year advertising deal with Google resulted in a significantly worse user experience, with the site slowing considerably. Then there was the looming threat known as Facebook, which users fled MySpace for in droves.
Facebook had no chance to win. We should not have won the market. The network effects at MySpace were so powerful. The only reason we won was because of the gross incompetence of MySpace systematically over a period of many years.
Nearly 40% of the workforce was laid off in 2009. 2 years later, it was sold to Specific Media for $35 million, or roughly 6% of what it had been purchased for. Murdoch would later refer to the purchase as a huge mistake. Number 23, Christopher Skase, Qintex Limited. Under Christopher Skase's leadership, this Australian financial services company grew substantially.
The incredible thing is just how much clout this guy has got on this island.
Throughout the 80s, Skase and Qintex purchased numerous companies in the name of massive expansion. With this came massive debts, with the company going bankrupt and being liquidated in 1991. All the while, Skase had been stealing money from the company and hiding it overseas. The same year Qintex collapsed, he fled to Spain. Numerous attempts at extradition back to Australia to face legal action failed. He died of stomach cancer in 2001, with no real consequences for all of the damage he left in his wake.
I think providing you know what you have to do to keep what you want to keep, we'll all be okay.
Number 22, Carly Fiorina, Hewlett-Packard. Founders Bill Hewlett and David Packard implemented a management system known as the HP Way. For decades, this was a 7-point system that looked beyond profit as a means of measuring company success.
The example they have set is one that increasingly, I think, is being emulated by American companies, and it's one of the reasons why in high technology field after high technology field, we're regaining market share.
This all but disappeared with the hiring of Carly Fiorina as CEO in 1999. Under her leadership, the company's culture and morale changed significantly. She gave employees an ultimatum to take a pay cut to help avoid layoffs, then proceeded to cut 6,000 jobs the following month. She also initiated an acquisition of Compaq, an unpopular decision that helped tank HP's value and reputation.
Her business record, her record as an executive is pretty bad.
Upon news of her forced resignation in 2005, the value of HP had increased nearly 7%.
Ideas don't run businesses, an idea isn't enough.
Number 21, Jack Welch, General Electric. You might not recognize the name, but it's hard to exaggerate Jack Welch's impact, not only on his company, but on the greater world.
You could argue that we're the most competitive country in the world now. Well, it isn't all attributable to Jack, but I think he's done a lot of things that other people have emulated in businesses that gets us to that position.
Welch served as General Electric chairman and CEO from 1981 to 2001. His tenure was focused on increasing shareholder value. This worked, but at the expense of his workforce, who were laid off by the thousands and the greater good of the businesses he oversaw.
One of the things Welch did was not just go about downsizing with layoffs, but he embraced offshoring and outsourcing to the extreme.
While this might not sound all that unusual now, Welch set the stage for other CEOs to copy his model of shareholder capitalism. His obsession with expansion was detrimental to the business even after he left. By 2008, GE was so in debt that Warren Buffett had to help bail it out. Number 20, John DeLorean, DeLorean Motor Company.
A flying service in California's Mojave Desert, a posh motel in Newport Beach, a small bank south of San Francisco. all pieces of the intriguing puzzle of how John DeLorean became involved in a $24 million cocaine deal. The pieces are now beginning to fit together.
Sure, the iconic vehicle that bore his name took us back to the future in 1985, but John DeLorean probably wished he could go back in time himself. The eccentric auto executive launched the DeLorean Motor Company with bold promises and a $200 million war chest, aiming to disrupt what he saw as a stagnant industry.
Last year at the Geneva Motor Show, Mr. DeLorean was already answering critics.
Every cent we got from the British government was spent in England in addition to $20 million we raised in the United States. So that when you put that all together, we actually contributed to the British economy much more than we took out of it.
But it wasn't long before his ambition outpaced his execution. Production delays, ballooning costs, and underwhelming reviews of the DMC-12 signaled trouble.
The allegations are that there could have been an abuse of, and continue to be an abuse of, and misuse of public funds.
By any specific person?
Not by any specific person. The allegations relate to the company as a whole, although inevitably the senior executives and directors of the company must be held responsible for any such alleged abuse or misuse of public resources and funds.
His decision to base manufacturing in Northern Ireland during the height of the Troubles only made things worse. When the company went belly up, DeLorean's fate was sealed by a sensational cocaine trafficking charge in 1982, a desperate move he claimed to save his dying dream.
Finally, this week, the end. The closing of the company, the arrest on drug charges. Ironically, it is now, during DeLorean's nightmare, that his dream may finally come true. In the last 2 days, DeLorean's sales have boomed and prices have jumped, spurred by hopes that the car will be a collector's item.
Number 19, Albert Dunlap, Sunbeam Products.
Al Dunlap has restructured lots of companies. Scott Paper was where he earned his fame, firing 11,000 workers, boosting Scott's stock by 225%, arranging for the sale of the company to its biggest rival, Kimberly-Clark, and collecting a nice paycheck for himself in the meantime. $100 million.
Sunbeam Products had already weathered a rough collapse in the late 1980s, capped by bankruptcy and a hostile takeover. By the mid-90s, it looked like the worst was behind them, until Chainsaw AI revved his engine. Hired in 1996 to revive the company, CEO Albert Dunlap, infamous for gutting workforces to goose short-term profits, promised a rapid turnaround.
And if someone like me had not come in, 100% of the people would have lost their job, and I think that is not corporate responsibility.
For all of those people to lose the jobs and for the corporation to go under.
I think it's much more important that someone comes in, makes the tough decisions. I didn't create the problem. I inherited the problem. I fixed the problem.
But when barbecue grill sales inexplicably spiked in late 1997, shareholders took notice. The truth, Dunlap had massively oversold to retailers, booking phony revenue to prop up the stock. When the fraud unraveled, Sunbeam took a $60 million hit. Dunlap was fired and the company once again slid into bankruptcy, this time with his fingerprints all over the crime scene.
Do you buy the argument that employees are assets for a corporation?
Of course employees are assets, but they're assets in a different fashion than shareholders. Again, the shareholders own the corporation. They take all the risk. You pay the employees every day, and the chief executives who don't watch out for shareholder value ultimately cause the whole corporation to fail.
Number 18, Mitch Lowe, MoviePass.
Movie theater subscription service MoviePass is hoping to provide a big jolt to the Hollywood box office. With MoviePass, moviegoers can see a movie a day for $10 a month, excluding IMAX and 3D screens. Joining us now, the founder and CEO of MoviePass, Mitch Lowe, a co-founder of Netflix and former president of Redbox.
Stop us if this pitch sounds too good to be true. For a flat monthly fee, MoviePass subscribers could see as many movies in theaters as they wanted. No catch, no blackout dates, just unlimited access. And for a brief moment, that fantasy became reality.
You lose money when I see one movie. How does this business model work out for you in the end?
I always find it interesting to get that question because, Netflix has to borrow billions of dollars a year to stay in business, to create the content that they don't earn enough money to pay for.
But behind the scenes, CEO Mitch Lowe is bleeding the company dry, chasing growth at any and all costs and ignoring basic financial logic. As losses piled up, prices fluctuated wildly, and Lowe resorted to desperate tactics, like secretly resetting user passwords and blacking out popular titles like Mission Impossible Fallout, to stem the bleeding. The deception didn't save the company. MoviePass collapsed, dragging parent firm Helios and Matheson Analytics into, you guessed it, bankruptcy.
And you have since reacquired the company and plan to relaunch the service.
We relaunched.
You've already relaunched. So give us a sense of, people can start going now?
Yeah, it's live in
We ended 2023 profitable, the first time in the history of the company.
Number 17, Angelo Mazzillo, Countrywide Financial.
Federal regulators yesterday charged Mazzillo and 2 former deputies with fraud. They say Mazzillo dumped nearly $140 million in Countrywide stock using inside information about the dangers the company faced by underwriting high-risk mortgages.
At first, the rise of Angelo Mazzillo and Countrywide Financial reads like a classic American success story. Founded in 1969 by Mazzillo and his mentor David Loeb, the mortgage lender grew from modest roots into a financial behemoth. But the next chapter is all too familiar.
While hiding their own hand from investors, Mazzillo was actively taking his own chips off the table. We allege that Mazzillo engaged in insider trading by establishing 4 stock sales plans while he was aware of the company's increasing credit risk and the expected poor performance of Countrywide-originated loans.
After once denouncing subprime lenders as crooks, Mazzillo led Countrywide straight into the heart of the housing bubble, embracing risky loans and deceptive practices that would trigger the 2008 financial crisis.
Take us back a little bit. Walk us through this. What exactly was Mr. Mazzillo accused of?
He was accused of misleading Countrywide investors about the kind of mortgages the company had been issuing over the last couple of years, from about early 2005 to the middle of 2007.
When the dust settled, Mazzillo was branded the face of predatory lending. Countrywide collapsed and was offloaded to Bank of America, saddled with toxic debt and scandal. Mazzillo, meanwhile, faced charges of insider trading and securities fraud and became a lasting symbol of Wall Street greed run amok.
The SEC said he told investors that the mortgages they were issuing were all proper and there was no significant risk to them. In fact, the SEC said they were letting their underwriting standards slide to match any competitor just in order to be able to sell every mortgage onto the secondary market.
Number 16, Ron Johnson, JCPenney.
Johnson, a former Apple executive, has been under pressure for failing to turn around the fortunes of the struggling retailer. JCPenney sales dropped 25% in Johnson's first year at the helm.
By the early 2010s, JCPenney was already in trouble, and a 2011 scandal involving manipulated Google search results didn't help. Enter Ron Johnson, the retail mastermind behind Apple's wildly successful stores, hired as CEO to stage a turnaround. Expectations were high, but what worked in Silicon Valley didn't translate to the department store floor.
Well, at Apple, of course, he created an $18 billion business, but we have said on this show in other contexts, there will never be another Steve Jobs. And maybe his success, Ron Johnson's success, was being at Apple, not being Ron Johnson.
Johnson scrapped coupons and long-standing promotions in favor of sleek branding and everyday low pricing, a move that alienated loyal customers almost overnight. Rather than course correct, Johnson plugged his ears and doubled down, blaming shoppers for not getting it. Sales plummeted, losses mounted, and by 2013, the board had seen enough. Johnson was out, and JCPenney was left in even worse shape than he found it.
JCPenney fixable, no matter who's the CEO. What's your sense on that?
You know, Susie, I think that it is fixable. I think the big question is how and how long it will take.
Number 15, Dennis Kozlowski, Tyco.
In my wildest imagination, when I would project myself into my late 50s and early 60s, where I would be or what I would be doing, if I make a list of 100 different places or 100 different things, here would never make that list.
He now earns $1 a day, mopping floors and slinging hash to his fellow inmates.
Unfortunately for this security systems manufacturer, the call really was coming from inside the house. CEO Dennis Kozlowski, who took the reins in 1992, appeared to be steering Tyco toward prosperity, orchestrating high-profile acquisitions and building a reputation for trust and reliability.
What's it like to earn that kind of money?
It's a way of keeping score, I guess.
Keeping score meant keeping up with the masters of the universe. $30 million to build a mansion in Boca Raton, acquiring homes in Nantucket and Colorado, and just loose change $16 million for Endeavor, a vintage yacht.
But behind the boardroom doors, Kozlowski was treating the company like his personal ATM. He used corporate funds to finance a wildly extravagant lifestyle, including a $2 million birthday party for his wife and millions more in unauthorized bonuses and forgiven loans, totaling roughly $150 million in all. In 2005, he was sentenced to prison for fraud, and Tyco's credibility was left in tatters. The company never fully recovered, ultimately merging with Johnson Controls in 2016.
This week, manufacturers Johnson Controls and Tyco announced a mega merger. They say the deal
deal will speed up innovation in the field of smart technology. Johnson Controls makes ventilation systems, car batteries, and auto seating. Meanwhile, Tyco makes fire suppression systems. Together, they're worth about $36 billion.
Number 14, Eddie Lampert, Sears.
That's right. For the better part of a decade, Eddie Lampert's name has been inextricably tied with Sears, but at this stage, it's really unclear whether his hedge fund ESL investments generated returns or losses from this very long investment.
Touting himself as a visionary, chief executive and chairman Lampert sold Sears to Kmart in 2005 and set out to reinvent the company. And not through revitalized stores or improved customer service, but aggressive cost-cutting and financial engineering. He slashed budgets, pitted departments against each other, and sold off valuable assets like Craftsman and Land's End, often to entities that were controlled by none other than Eddie Lampert.
At first glance, it appears as though a bankrupt Sears would be detrimental for Lampert. He personally holds a 31% stake. His hedge fund owns an additional 18.9%, and he owns a significant amount of Sears debt, not to mention the reputational damage that comes from overseeing a master plan that disintegrated over the course of a decade.
As stores crumbled and customers fled, Lampert was accused by Sears creditors of intentionally stripping the company for parts. By the time Sears filed for bankruptcy in 2018, the only thing Lampert had successfully preserved was his own stake in the wreckage.
We just don't know exactly how much cash money was put up to buy Kmart out of bankruptcy. Then it was the Sears transaction. I actually think that it was going in this direction no matter what. It was a bad capital structure for a company, though, with a lot of bad locations.
Number 13, Sam Bankman-Fried, FTX.
A lot of people look at you and see Bernie Madoff.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's who I am at all, but I understand why they're saying that. People lost money, and people lost a lot of money. And I mean, at the end of the day, look, there's a question of what happened and why.
For a while, Sam Bankman-Fried looked like crypto's golden boy, a disheveled genius who promised to tame the digital finance frontier. His cryptocurrency exchange, FTX, exploded in popularity thanks to sleek marketing and celebrity endorsements. But behind the scenes, Bankman-Fried was orchestrating one of the largest ever financial frauds.
FTX deposits were used to pay Alameda's creditors. Carolyn Ellison said you knew about that. Is that true?
You know, best I can tell, Alameda did have a big position open on FTX. That position, I think, was very over-collateralized.
He quietly funneled billions in customer funds to his hedge fund, Alameda Research, and then used the money to make risky bets, buy real estate, and donate to political campaigns. When the House of Cards collapsed in 2022, over $8 billion had vanished. Found guilty on 7 counts of fraud and conspiracy, Bankman-Fried was sentenced to 25 years in prison.
What we know right now is that a sentence of 25 years has been handed down by the judge, including some years of supervisory release, 3 to be sure. And part of what the judge said amounted to that sentence was losses, he said, that totaled more than $11 billion.
Number 12, Elizabeth Holmes, Theranos.
This Theranos blood test put my cholesterol at 170. My own doctor found it to be 169, just the week before. Holmes says she wants to make this sort of testing available anywhere, anytime.
There's no reason why these can't be distributed in very, very decentralized locations.
Your home?
Yeah.
Clad in a black turtleneck and channeling Steve Jobs, the Theranos founder captivated investors and the media with a machine she claimed could run hundreds of sophisticated tests from a finger prick. There was just one problem: it didn't work, like at all. Holmes built Theranos into a $9 billion illusion propped up by manipulated data, aggressive secrecy, and flat-out lies.
I'm not the lab director, and so...
I know, but you're the CEO and founder of the company. I mean, this is as serious as it gets.
What I know is that I've put the best people in place to be able to investigate every aspect of this and ensure that we meet the quality standards that we hold ourselves to, and I know they're doing that.
At one point, she even used commercial lab equipment while passing off the results as Theranos made. When whistleblowers and journalists exposed the truth, the company collapsed. Holmes was convicted of fraud in 2022 and sentenced to just over 11 years in prison. A spectacular fall for a woman once hailed as the next great Silicon Valley visionary.
Well, she is one of 655 inmates at this so-called Club Fed, about 100 miles outside of Houston, where she grew up. She'll have absolutely no privacy. She'll be wearing a khaki uniform. She will spend her first 90 days working in the kitchen, as we mentioned, making 12 to 40 cents an hour. After that, she will work as a groundskeeper or a janitor at the facility.
Number 11, Richard S. Fuld Jr., Lehman Brothers.
We could not stem the tide
of the uncontrollable, and that's why I talked about it, of the uncontrollable market forces and the false rumors that swirled around the firm.
As longtime CEO of the esteemed financial services firm, Folds had a front row seat to the subprime mortgage boom and couldn't resist going all in. Under his leadership, Lehman took on risky mortgage-backed securities and toxic assets, even as red flags mounted across the industry. Fold dismissed the warnings, doubled down on leverage, and refused to sell or merge when lifelines were still on the table.
Lehman Brothers is going bankrupt, and financial markets from Asia to Europe are doing their utmost to prevent Monday from turning from dark to black. Employees of America's fourth largest investment bank saw the writing on the wall late Sunday after talks to pull them back from the abyss collapsed.
When the bubble burst, Lehman imploded with $600 billion in assets, the largest bankruptcy in U.S. history, which sent global markets into a tailspin and helped ignite the Great Recession. Folds walked away disgraced, his legacy forever tied to one of the most avoidable collapses in Wall Street history.
I don't see why you thought he was contrite. I thought he was shameless. I thought it was appalling. He blamed everyone. He blamed, as you say, naked short sellers over and over in case we didn't get the point, when in fact hedge funds like Harbinger had money locked up in Lehman and was shorting it to try and make the most of the money that they already had. He blamed everybody but himself.
Number 10, Gerald Ratner, Ratner Group.
We sell gifts as well as jewellery. Things like a teapot for £2. Or we've got this imitation book that you lay on your coffee table. The pages don't actually open, but they're beautiful curled up corners with imitation antique dust.
Gerald Ratner grew his family's modest jewelry brand into an empire on the philosophy that the loudest voice commands the most business. He learned the hard way that it's sometimes best to shut up. While speaking at a convention in 1991, the Ratner Group CEO joked about his company's cost-effective mass production. He said the jewelry is so affordable because it's total crap.
I know you might say it's not in the best possible taste, but we sold 250,000 of them last year.
His company's stock plummeted as insulted customers lost faith in the quality of Ratner products. The company won them back after the CEO's resignation and a rebrand. Today's Signet Jewelers is one of the biggest names in the industry. As for their old one, the consequence of a business rep getting too candid is called the Ratner effect.
It was only when you read the tabloids the next day that it did look terrible. But I mean, as I left the Albert Hall, I didn't think anything was untoward. And I don't blame the press, because the press, always do that. They're disingenuous, and, good luck to them. That's what people want to read about. They want a story that's exaggerated somewhat.
Number 9, Ike Batista, OGX Petroleio.
I think one of the reasons of our success is that all our projects, they start from the beginning by sharing. See, when you develop billion-dollar projects, new businessmen developing projects should take care of the surrounding environment, because I will affect several communities.
Energy industrialist Ike Batista quickly went from being one of the world's richest men to a negative net worth. As hard as his companies were hit by his gambles, OGX Petroleio was particularly devastated. Batista got lucky when the company discovered major crude oil reserves. The parent company, EBX Group, spent the next few years driving Brazil's infrastructure and energy, before finally going bust in 2012.
Thousands of jobs would come to this area of Rio de Janeiro, and this whole area around me was to be developed into a new massive business park. But with so much uncertainty about the empire, indeed about Ike Batista's own personal wealth, many of the big assets are now being sold off, including the port here at Açu.
Batista overpromised, underdelivered, and overspent on other ventures and an extravagant lifestyle. OGX then filed for the biggest bankruptcy in the history of Latin America. Under new leadership, it rebranded as Domo Energia in 2017 and was sold to Petro Rio in 2022. Meanwhile, the ever-reckless Batista was sentenced to 30 years in prison for corruption.
Brazilian oil and mining magnate Ike Batista has left prison for house arrest ahead of a trial on corruption charges. He's accused of bribery and hiding illegal funds offshore, but denies any wrongdoing. He was arrested last year after spending 4 days in New York as a fugitive.
Number 8, Martin Shkreli, Turing Pharmaceuticals.
Now, you guys have said that the reason you increased this price so much after acquiring the drug was in order to do the research and development to develop a better version of Daraprim. I just got off the phone with an HIV doctor who told me they don't need a better version of this drug. What are you doing here?
Yeah, that's not true. There's a recent paper that suggests that 2 patients died due to autoimmune encephalitis from toxoplasmosis.
Turing Pharmaceuticals broke out in 2015 with several major manufacturing licenses. Then Martin Shkreli raised the price for Daraprim, an antiparasitic used to treat HIV, from $13.50 per pill to $750. This reprehensible price hike made the so-called pharma bro a pariah. The company's reputation was further damaged by his callous social media presence and dubious pledges to make treatment more affordable.
What do you say to that single pregnant woman who might have AIDS, no income, and she needs Daraprim in order to survive? What do you say to her when she has to make that choice? What do you say to her?
On the advice of counsel, I invoke my Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination and respectfully decline to answer your question.
Shkreli claims the controversy prompted investigations into a potential Ponzi scheme and misappropriation of funds for his company Retrophin. He was ultimately convicted on securities fraud and conspiracy in 2017. Turing maintained ties after rebranding as Viera Pharmaceuticals that year. But with Shkreli's audacity leaving the company in a financial and legal mess, Viera filed for bankruptcy in 2023.
To sort of engage in that kind of conduct while you're in a criminal trial is a bad idea, because once you get to sentencing, you basically have an audience of one, the judge. And the judge is going to be looking at him and trying to evaluate what kind of person he is.
Number 7, John Merriweather, long-term capital management.
John Merriweather is best known, or rather notoriously known, for his hedge fund Long-Term Capital, which back in 1998 lost more than 90% of its assets. They were valued at about $4.8 billion, and this all took place in the weeks following Russia's currency devaluation and bond default.
Scientific strategy and secrecy made long-term capital management an anomaly on Wall Street. For all of John Merriweather's brilliance, his leadership methods were not a long-term investment. His hedge fund saw 3 years of unrivaled profit before taking a hit from the 1997 financial crisis in Asia. After Russia defaulted on its debts the following year, LTCM lost billions in months.
And turns out that his next venture off to that, JWM Partners, is not faring much better. That's according to people familiar with the matter, although the decline there did play out over months. Its main fund lost 44% from September 2007 to February 2009.
The decision to publicize some closely guarded trading methods further shook potential investors' faith. The next closed-door deal was for a bailout, but LTCM dissolved in 2000. Experts blame Merriweather's very foundation of a fund that trusted the numbers and subverted trends, thus alienating potential partners. It would unfortunately not be the last time market volatility bested Merriweather's rationalist strategies.
Bloomberg News has learned that JWM Partners is shutting down its relative value opportunity second fund. Now, the fund lost 44% of its value from September of 2007 to February of this year. Since the fund opened in 1999, it has returned an average of less than 1.5% a year.
Number 6, Adam Neumann, WeWork.
The young CEOs of today are afraid of going public. I think two things change. One, there's never been access to private capital like this. So I'm not sure if we would see some of the largest companies in the world today. If they were starting today, I'm not sure you would see them going public as soon as they did. They had no other choice.
The workspace design company WeWork was ironically felled by unprofessional leadership. Publicly, CEO Adam Neumann's eccentric image and excessive office culture undermined the company's credibility. Privately, he overindulged in illicit substances. He also directly manipulated business ties to serve his personal life and lofty ambitions for WeWork.
Most companies in the world run their company with quarterly earning reports. And when I'm going to make a decision, this is true about life and true about a business. When I'm going to make a decision based on 3 months forward, I'm not going to make the right decision. Masa is very famous for making a 300-year plan. If you want to start thinking forward, you really have to think really far away.
Finally, in 2019, controversy over the business model and Neumann himself prompted him to delay the IPO launch. The CEO then voted himself out as the company became a laughingstock. WeWork is now considered a cautionary tale about giving too much power and agency to the head of an office. Even after COVID-19's impact on workspaces led to bankruptcy in 2023, WeWork continues to reject Neumann's efforts to buy it back.
Remarkable to see Adam Neumann back at the table. Of course, has the backing, his firm Flow has the backing of Andreessen Horowitz, who put in $350 million into that, and now it appears that he's teaming up with Dan Loeb as well. So far, it appears that the advisors to WeWork are giving him the Heisman. We will see whether, now that some of this is public, whether that changes.
Number 5, Aubrey McClendon, Chesapeake Energy.
Community and the land we love. The work we do every day matters. It's not a question, it's a fact. We're raising the bar and fueling lives all around us. The future and opportunity for our country starts with our drill bit.
Innovations like fracking turned Chesapeake Energy into one of America's most powerful natural gas companies going into the 2010s. But CEO Aubrey McClendon's own prosperity was partly based on financial creativity. In 2012, it came out that he was financing operations with personal loans from his company's own lenders. After his dismissal, McClendon was sued by his old company for selling data, then investigated for market manipulation.
Aubrey McClendon, one of the best-known architects of the U.S. shale boom, indicted by a federal grand jury Tuesday on conspiracy charges linked to rigging the price of oil and gas leases in Oklahoma. Mr. McClendon is the only person named in the indictment for activities which date from 2007 through 2012, when he was chief executive of Chesapeake Energy Corporation.
Forbes wasn't kidding when it dubbed him America's most reckless billionaire. Before these revelations, McClendon's schemes and downfall severely damaged Chesapeake's value. They experienced years of financial volatility before rebranding as Expand Energy Corporation following a merger in 2024. The day after he was indicted in 2016, McClendon died in a car wreck.
Yeah, police telling us that he was northbound here on Midwest Boulevard. You could actually see the tire marks that lead right into the crash site. You can see the blackened out area from the fire. You can also see a memorial there starting to form. Once firefighters put out the fire, they found a mangled 2013 Chevy Tahoe and the driver, Aubrey McClendon, dead.
Number 4. Mike Lazaridis, Research in Motion.
Smarter and sleeker. Now with real-time, turn-by-turn GPS navigation. It has the intelligence you require with the beauty you desire. The all-new BlackBerry Curve from AT&T, the world's leading provider of BlackBerry service. In new colors, titanium and red. AT&T, your world delivered.
Mike Lazaridis and initial partner Doug Freegan essentially reinvented the cell phone with the multi-purpose device BlackBerry. Unfortunately, he was less smart about business. That is where Research in Motion co-CEO Jim Balsillie came in, but he too downplayed the introduction of the iPhone in 2007. Despite the BlackBerry's superior engineering, other smartphones' marketing and technical innovations convinced RIM to adapt.
We've got a lot of listeners and viewers in the Middle East and in India. You can confidently tell them they're going to have no problems with being able to use their BlackBerries, and you being able to give them assurance that everything they give is secure.
That's over. Interview's over. Please, you can't use that, Rory. That's just not fair.
It was too late, and the two CEOs resigned shortly before the company was renamed BlackBerry Limited in 2013. They would both become cautionary figures for failing to recognize market trajectory. However, Balsillie and Lazaridis himself later acknowledged that it was the latter who fought the principles of restructuring. The struggling BlackBerry Limited discontinued its namesake product in 2022.
This isn't a shock because they let everyone know in 2020 that this was coming. In 2022, these services were going to be shut down. So things like texting won't work, data won't work, you can't call 911. Nothing will reliably still be working on these phones. So we're going to have to put them to bed and have little funerals for our BlackBerries if you're still using them.
Number 3, Frank Lorenzo, Eastern Airlines.
Eastern's management has made preparations that if there isn't an agreement and if there is a strike, has made preparations to be able to operate the airline in that event. But naturally, the company needs to have its pilots, needs to have its flight attendants, needs to have its non-contract employees come to work.
An industry staple for almost 7 decades, Eastern Airlines struggled to adapt to that industry's deregulation in the 80s. Powerhouse manager Frank Lorenzo of Texas Air was poised to revive the company. The first order of business was a labor dispute, which Lorenzo actually made worse with harsh policies and deals. Pilots and flight attendants joined the labor strike, and the FAA issued a massive fine over safety violations.
Ultimate stability and no furloughs, etc., is profitability and a vibrant company. That's the only ultimate guarantee, because as we all know, there ain't no Santa Claus. 3 years ago, when we proudly announced the acquisition of Eastern Airlines at a press conference, I never believed that we'd be here today.
By 1991, Eastern was completely out of money. Lorenzo's folly would go down as a tragedy of aggressive management. The punchline is that he bounced back after selling off Eastern's assets to his other companies. Revivals of the airline have since failed to get off the ground.
Official word from Eastern Airlines' public relations wire is that the airline will officially discontinue all scheduled operations beginning at midnight tonight.
Number 2, Nick Leeson, Barings Bank. It took Barings Bank 233 years to become one of the world's leading merchant banks. It took Nick Leeson 3 years to tear it down. The derivatives trader was transferred to the company's Singapore office after he was denied a UK broker's license for failing to report a legal issue on his application. In 1992, he invested Baring's own money in futures without authorization, hiding shortfalls in an error account. Finally, the 1995 Kobe earthquake destabilized Asian markets and led to the discovery of Leeson's no longer lucrative corruption. He ultimately cost Barings almost £1 billion before the ING Group bought the company in 1995 for a single quid. Meanwhile, Leeson got 4 years in prison, his banking career killed alongside his centuries-old financial institution.
I hate to use the word business advice. Unfortunately, I'll be remembered for the loss of £862 million and the collapse of Barings Bank. So, trying to give business advice is a little bit fraudulent as far as I'm concerned.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Bernard Ebbers, WorldCom.
Global network access? Good. Massive security breach? Bad. Preventing the former from becoming the latter? WorldCom. Want confidence? You'll find the path very clearly marked. WorldCom, the leader in globally managed VPN solutions on the world's most scalable global IP network.
Telecom cowboy Bernard Ebbers' company was one of the biggest in its industry. It turns out this was not accomplished honestly. WorldCom filed for bankruptcy in 2002 after Cynthia Cooper's internal audit revealed extensive accounting fraud to bolster the company's stock. Up to $11 billion in overstatements were ultimately reported. Ebbers ousted his fellow executives, but investigations and convictions framed him as the mastermind.
The Wall Street Journal is reporting that telecommunications giant WorldCom may declare bankruptcy tonight. The company's board of directors has been meeting all day. It would be the biggest bankruptcy filing in history. The company is more than $30 billion in debt and is reeling from an accounting scandal.
He had already fallen out of favor with the company over his lack of strategy following a failed merger with Sprint. The disgraced, financially devastated WorldCom would eventually be sold to Verizon in 2006 under the name MCI Inc. And in the years since his downfall, the once renowned Ebbers is synonymous with executive incompetence and corruption.
The former bouncer has withered to 160 pounds, these court filings say, and 13 years into his sentence, his daughter is appealing for his release. Joy Ebbers-Bourne telling the court that it is evident to her that her dad's days on earth are short, and she fears he may only have weeks to live.
Did we miss a company ruined by one person? Let us know in the comments.